What's up, Chiefs Kingdom? Noah Gray here, tight end for the Kansas City Chiefs. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe to Josh's channel and check out showmefootball.com for more.
What is up, Chiefs Kingdom? Welcome back to another video on my channel. My name is Josh Fan of showmefootball.com and arrowheadaddict.com, covering your Kansas City Chiefs. And the Kansas City Chiefs made a trade late last night. We know Brett Veach likes to do his business during the late hours of the day. He's done it once again, trading a future 7th round pick, for Arizona Cardinals outside linebacker Cam Thomas. Thomas was a former 3rd round pick in the 2022 NFL draft by the Arizona Cardinals. He had a promising rookie campaign where he recorded 3 sacks and a handful of tackles, but then really regressed in 2023, wasn't able to even record a sack. He still played sparingly for Arizona, but then this year they decided to offload him to the Kansas City Chiefs for a future 7th round pick, probably a guy that the Arizona Cardinals were going to cut if the Chiefs didn't trade for him. But with the Chiefs being at the bottom of the waiver wire order, if there's a guy that you like, you pretty much have to send over a draft pick for them, or else odds are you're not going to get them. So that's what the Chiefs do. They send over a late draft pick, low-value draft pick, to get a guy they like late in the offseason. So with that said, the acquisition of Cam Thomas is actually one that I am very intrigued in. Yes, you could consider him a failed draft pick with the Arizona Cardinals, and that's why they're moving on from him. But this is kind of the Brett Veach special, where you bring in a former significant draft pick. I mean, he was drafted in the 3rd round. That's like a top 100, top 150 pick. And you see what you can get out of him. He's definitely the Steve Spagnuolo type when it comes to defensive ends. He's 6'4", 267 pounds, played outside linebacker in Arizona. He would play defensive end here in Kansas City, but he provides you with some rotational depth at the defensive end position. And for one, this tells me that the Chiefs aren't all that sure about Felix Anudike-Uzomah. They've seen what he's done in the preseason, and they said, hey, we need to bring in some depth here, someone that can fill snaps. That's exactly what Cam Thomas is. Don't expect him to come in here and light the world on fire or anything like that. This is someone that's probably going to be in the rotation. He will get some snaps. He'll probably play some snaps inside and out, because in the preseason, I actually saw that he was playing some snaps at defensive tackle for the Arizona Cardinals. And we know that Spags loves versatility with his defensive linemen. But with Charles Omenihu being out for the first big chunk of the season and FAU still being a bit of an unknown, it makes sense to bring in a defensive end like Cam Thomas for some additional depth. Now, at the minimum, Cam Thomas is going to be some additional depth and someone that can come in on passing downs and whatnot. But this is also a guy that still has a bit of upside. It's interesting because he still has 2 years of team control. He was only drafted a couple of years ago. So there's still a ton of upside here. And I think there's something to be said about the situation in Arizona and their development of defensive linemen. And then you look at Kansas City and kind of their culture and how they're able to bring guys in, and they improve under this coaching staff. Joe Cullen has done a great job with the defensive linemen since he's come in and become the defensive line coach. A lot of guys have taken a big step forward under him, and I really like his philosophy. So there's hope for Cam Thomas being more than just a rotational piece at the bottom of the depth chart. There's some hope here that you can kind of unlock some of that potential that Arizona wasn't supposed to. The stuff that made him a 3rd round pick. He's not super athletic, but there are some things about his game that scream Steve Spagnuolo defensive end. He's almost like a poor man's George Karlaftis. He's a high motor guy. He's an energy guy. He'll at least get you some of those cleanup sacks. And I think there's something to be said about him playing next to Chris Jones and George Karlaftis. That's a better duo than he was playing with in Arizona, and that will give him some opportunity to come in here and get some of those sacks. Now, here's the other thing that I really like about Thomas is, despite the fact that he was passed up by some other guys in Arizona, which ultimately led to him being traded. Usually when you see a team dumping off a 3rd round pick this early into his contract, it raises some red flags. But I mean, Arizona had just spent a first-round pick on a defensive lineman. They've been working to rebuild that defensive line, and Cam Thomas just simply was not a part of their plans, but that doesn't mean he can't help out in Kansas City and that there's not some untapped potential here. And I think that Cam Thomas actually had a very strong preseason. He recorded 3 sacks just in the preseason alone, and then, just reading more about him as a player, PFF KC Chiefs put this out last night saying the Chiefs have acquired edge Cam Thomas from the Cardinals in exchange for a 7th-round pick, and then they follow that up with 13.4% pass rush win rate and 35 pressures over his first 2 seasons. You can certainly work with that. A 13.4% pressure rate is pretty damn good. That would have ranked in the top half of Chiefs pass rushers last year. Now, of course, smaller sample size with a guy like Cam Thomas, who didn't play as much, but what I'm trying to say is that if you're taking a guy who's getting really close, getting those pressures, but maybe not getting the sack numbers, when you put him next to players like Chris Jones and George Karlaftis who are going to eat up so much attention, then yeah, a guy like Cam Thomas can come in here and get some of those cleanup sacks, give you some good snaps, almost kind of like a Mike Dana. Mike Dan is a guy who's never going to wow you with his one-on-one pass rush. He's not going to get a bunch of sacks unless it's cleaning up for someone else. That's Cam Thomas, but high motor, fill snaps for you, provide good depth. While it may be concerning to some to hear that the acquisition of Cam Thomas may mean not so good things for the Chiefs' depth prior to bringing him in and the progression of Felix Anudike-Uzomah, I just think this gives you good insurance. And let's put FAU and his progression aside for a second. I think that regardless, this was a good move. I think regardless, the Chiefs needed to bring in another veteran because now you have insurance for FAU and there's not so much pressure on him to produce this year, even though that's what we want to see. Now there's not as much pressure being put on him. You have another guy that, at worst, if FAU's just not cutting it, or if Charles Omenihu takes longer to come back than we all thought, you just have someone else that's there, and you have insurance in case there were another injury that were to occur. Something like that. This makes a ton of sense. It's just a guy that makes you feel better about the room, and that's what I was looking for the Chiefs to do. I'm really glad they made this move. Cam Thomas isn't going to blow you away or anything. He's not going to blow you away with his stats, but I do think there's some untapped potential here, some upside for him to become a potential 3, 4, maybe even 5 sacks a year kind of guy. So those are my thoughts on the Kansas City Chiefs trading for Arizona Cardinals defensive end Cam Thomas. I want to hear from you guys, though. What do you think about this move? Do you approve or do you disapprove? Any concerns about bringing him in? Let me know down below. Would love to hear y'all's thoughts. With all that being said, make sure you like, share, and subscribe so more Chiefs fans can find this. And make sure you check out my work on showmefootball.com and arrowheadaddict.com for more. I'll see you all in the next one. Go Chiefs!